Of you, if you can just write down your name, not Mr. and Mrs., just write down every individual name so I have it so that I can record who attended this presentation. If you want to, just be curious or serious. If you want me to visit you, you can just set up like an asterisk beside your name, and then I will get a hold of you in the future. But I need to have every one of your names, so that's my requirement of my boss. That's the requirement. So I don't know if I'll start with you. Thank you.
Name, number, email.
What'd you say?
Name, number, and email.
If you want to have an email, I will follow up with you. If you just want, I just need your name. And if you want to say, hey, I'm going to seek out a visit from you, and an email or an asterisk will suffice. You're asking me too difficult of a question. No, I'm not. I don't know if you were in first service or not. All right, I think we will get started. It's probably about 45-minute presentation, and really what I want to do is I want to just give you an overview of my services and what I do, and also what I encourage you to give towards. Home missions, world missions, seminary, Martin Luther College, and so forth. But that's above and beyond your offerings to your congregation, Holy Trinity. And if you're not able to give that offering additionally, because you do give a congregational mission offering, CMO, that's great. So I'm not here to get anybody's consciences riled. I'm here to share with us all the ministries that we have going and all the tools that you might find very interesting. Nope. No, that's fine. Yeah. There we go. I want to. Does anybody still have the bulletin? And I want to read again the widow's mite. It's very short. And then let's see if you can just think of the stewardship principles, what he's talking about, maybe from the story of the widow's mite, or maybe directly, because Jesus obviously alludes to it. So I did not go from the, I do not have the text up. So here's the gospel reading. If you have this bulletin, you can read along. Sitting across from the temple treasury, he watched how the crowd dropped money into the treasury. Many rich people were putting in large sums. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 tiny coins worth very little. Summoning his disciples, he said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. For they all gave out of their surplus, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all she had to live on." And I don't know if it's a give and take, but I wanted to ask you, just what are the principles of just stewardship that you get out of that little story? I have 5 of them, so maybe you're going to match, maybe you're not going to match. Are we a talkative group, or should I just? What are the principles? Giving. So you don't have any wrong or right answer with that.
Your
Time. Yeah. And where is that in the story? Was that, well, no, but I mean, so she's got to go, and to give up to the temple. She has that time, she has to wait in line, and I don't think she thought that Jesus was watching. That's the time. You have to take time. You have to, I don't know if you were in the first service, I described a woman who was supporting herself through making baskets. I don't know what this widow was doing, but that's a logical conclusion, that she was poor and she was making baskets in the marketplace. Anything else? Here's what I get. Oh, yeah.
According to what her story is kind of going out there, is that nothing belongs to us.
Huh?
Nothing that we have here on this earth is given to us free and without any holding back from God. And what we speak to do is say, all this belongs to you.
Yeah.
Not trusting Him like she did
Yeah.
to take care of her.
We are stewards of God's blessing. We don't, nothing belongs to us. We are stewards, but nothing belongs to us. And what she decided was, well, I need to give that off. This is the annual temple tax. So,
Right, she had determined that she had planned on giving a certain amount, much as maybe we should, and that with circumstances, it came about that she really needed that. She had predetermined that that's what she was going to give, so she gave it and had to rely on faith that even though she gave what she had planned, that the Lord would take care of it.
yeah. That was a planned gift, and the circumstances were she couldn't afford it. But she could not afford not to give it. That's just great.
She had a beautiful faith.
She's what?
She had a beautiful faith.
God's going to provide. God's going to provide. Here's what, so setting aside our offerings, so planned giving, giving thankfully, it's not about the amount, it's about the attitude. Give the whole offering according to what one has received from God. Give voluntarily, and give trusting God's promises, heart of faith. What I think is interesting, if you study this story, they had 13 trumpet-like containers, 1 through 13, and the temple tax was the first 2 that you would, give your offerings to, and then the rest of the offering it's very interesting to study this. So the Levites, they would, there was wood that needed to be purchased for all of the sacrifices, and so you had money for wood. If wood was donated, the Levites who had leprosy or some kind of skin disease, or they were the ones who pulled out the nails or the things from the wood, and then the priest would sanctify them, and then they could be used for through the fire of their sacrifices. But here's another interesting thing, because there's 13. There's a free will offering. There's also an offering for education of the poor. And maybe did Jesus receive that offering? I don't know. 12 years old? Yeah, that's possible. And the conversion rate, when it was favored you for your offering, there's also an offering for that. Oh, give the whole offering. So they turn in the offering. The exchange rate was beneficial to them, and then they would contribute that anyways. So there's a lot of giving, and they wanted to give their first fruits and the whole offering. Any questions with that? How do you guys give? When our congregation, I served there for 30 years, and they did not want to go to online. We didn't say they had to go to online, but when we did go to online, and it was expedited with COVID, we increased offerings 20% a year just by going to online. Why? Because attendance is spotty, but when you're giving online, it's constant. And that was 20% increase. And we still are increasing our offerings. Envelopes, we still have envelopes. Online giving. But I don't know if you consider, donating sometimes assets, or did you ever hear of a donor-advised fund? Is that kind of a foreign concept? Donor-advised funds are interesting. My brother uses a donor-advised fund. Why? What it is you give to the wells, or you can, donor-advised funds are any Schwab or Fidelity, they have donor-advised funds. LPL, they have donor-advised funds. But the Wells has a donor-advised fund also. But why the Wells is a really good option is only Wells Ministries can benefit. A donor-advised fund is you donate money, $20,000, $30,000. My brother does it because he gets bonuses. And right now he has a bonus of $28,000, year-end bonus, and he's going to deposit it all into the donor-advised fund. He can't get it out. It's donated, but he doesn't know where it's going to go. It earns interest. And he then can go around during the year, or 2 years, or 3 years, and say, hey, Wells Foundation, I want to give to home missions. I want to give to my congregation, $2,000, $1,000, all of those different things. And you can just donor-advised fund, because if you sell a business, a donor-advised fund, you can just dump it all in there. It is donated, you can't get it back, but you can designate the offering, and it grows. I think the Wells Fund has 15% this year. So it grew. It is a really, really good giving tool. The other assets, if you can donate directly to the Wells Foundation, and you just want to say set up from the LPL to Schwab. You just send them, and then the funds will be deposited in the Wells. You don't have to do anything. And then you can give to Evergreen. You can give to Home Missions. You can give to World Missions. You can give. And why is there as good an idea to give assets or securities? Because you don't have to pay any capital gains. If you have a house that we're now getting interest, and you want to get rid of the rental business, it's about $250,000 in Texas, and then you can just say, I'm going to go give it directly to the Wells, and you don't have to do anything more other than designated Home Missions, World Missions, or anything there. The Wells Foundation takes care of the sale, they take care of the transfer of assets, they give you a tax slip for that donation. So there's a lot to consider in that realm. What I want to emphasize with you, that if we do not have strong outposts for the gospel, and we know that you are giving, I don't know what percentage you're giving, but the congregational mission offering is our backbone. And if we do not have the congregational support, that is something that's what I would encourage you to address. But if your congregation is giving 5 or 10% of all of that, give to the congregation. The foundation can facilitate some of this giving. You can give that asset that I said, $250,000 house in Texas that are renting out, you want to get rid of it, you give that and you can designate it for Holy Trinity. And what the Wells Foundation does is still does all of the work. Okay? Sells it, has a realtor, they take out whatever they have from the expenses, and then they give it to the church. But important, you have to give to the church first. That's where your gospel outpost is. Oops. So locally is in the most important. Then, what I shared was with what I believe was shocking. I did not know that the Synod relies on 30% offerings above your congregational mission offerings. Some of you would probably, I know Gary Ide was involved with it, and I think there was other people. We had to get 10% growth every single year, and we achieved 1%, 2%, and I think there was one time 3% growth. So we need 10%. We grow 1 and 2. So what did the Synod do? They established a stabilization fund. Every offering comes in. For 2 years, it sits there. And then when the next 2-year budget cycle is, they know exactly how much they can budget. So bequests come in, offerings come in, and then 2 years after they budget. It has been the best gift. Stabilization fund is one of the great tools that our Synod has received. I don't know if you're in a position to have a stabilization fund. It does, it's incredible for budgeting. But that's what we need, 30%. And if all of a sudden we don't have, if we're short of that, 30%, we have to make cuts. But it's 2 years out. 2 years out. So it's a soft landing. If we budget and it's a surplus, we then can consider more ministries. And we have considered more home missions. We consider more world mission. We consider more support for our colleges and so forth like that. I don't know if you know that we have 4 Wells campuses. Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary, which is in Mequon, Wisconsin. Luther Prep, which is in Watertown, Wisconsin. It's 400 kids. Luther Prep, I'm not going to be sharing a lot with you, but they're having an initiative. They are going to raise funds for a music center. They've never had a music center on campus. For 100 years, they haven't had a music center. And so now they are going to have one. It's $12 million because of the cost of building. $12 million. They now have raised $6 million, And now they're going to begin fundraising throughout our synod. I am just mentioning it to you. You have Evergreen to take care of as well. And then the campus there is Martin Luther College. It's in New Ulm, Minnesota. And then Michigan Lutheran Seminary is the other prep school. But they have gone out on their own a little bit. We continue to recognize them, but they have their own support staff. And so we just do what we can do as a Christian giving counselor. They, when they were about to close, they decided they needed to have their own internal funding. So sort of like an area Lutheran high school. So you are well aware of what that is like. I was as the district mission board chairman of the Pacific Northwest here, I was on the task force that started this initiative. 100 missions in 10 years, 75 enhancements in 10 years as well. I know a lot of people were very upset about it. There's a lot of people very much in support of it. But they were saying, how can we do this? Money and manpower we do not have. Well, you can look at the Wisconsin Seminary Fall Report and the Martin Luther College Fall Report as well. Manpower is rising. We are doing better at recruiting. We had come through COVID where a lot of people just said, I'm staying home. I'm not going to go into the teaching ministry. And we had hit a very low point of enrollment at Martin Luther College. And now we are beginning to see an increase in enrollment. The pastor studies, the pre-seminary studies for Martin Luther College, this year we have 44, 32, 46, and 31 pre-seminary. I think the seminary welcomed 55 pastors this fall. Candidates for pastors this fall. And you can read about all those. So we are increasing manpower, and what the seminary did, they are doing classes. Pastor Treptow, who served out our district a long, long time ago, is now the president of the seminary, and he has, it's called church planting classes. And what it is we want the kids to be, the students, they're men, the students to be very aware of what they're getting into when they get into a mission. And so they have church planting classes and courses. We are also addressing money. Every first year student at Martin Luther College now is not going to have any academic debt. So they can say, I'm going to go for the first year and I'm going to just see what it's like. President Gergel has now $15,000 is what a graduate on average leaves in debt. And that's, other colleges are double or triple. So that's really, really good. The seminary, when they come in, I was on a phone call with President Treptow, and he said they gave out $600,000 in grants. And that's an amazing amount. And what do they do with this? Financial aid. And what they also try to do is when anybody graduates from the seminary, they do not have any academic debt. So now when pastors are coming out, they don't have any academic debt. Zero. And I don't know if that's going to be able to be continued, but for 2 years, it's been that case. And so that's incredible, but that's because you support home missions, world missions, seminary, and MLC. I just thought of, so the home missions, manpower is solid, and we're hoping it continues. Money is solid. We have now 7 years of that initiative funded already. So when we set it up, we did not have money and we didn't have manpower. God blessed us with manpower. God blessed us with money for 7 years. There's one issue of money. We're still raising money for this initiative, but inflation. So it costs more money to start a mission than it ever has. We started, I think it was pre-COVID, $800,000. After COVID, 1.5 to 2 million in 4 years. So we don't just give them $2 million. We give them what they need to support every year, and then they don't need to think about it, they just need to grow. And then 12 years to 15 years is a life of a mission when they can get off mission status. But we do not demand it. We just let God direct it. Is there any questions? Okay. I wanted you to understand world missions. I gave this stat in the sermon. We're going to have 500 national pastors who serve more than 1,000 churches. Currently, we have 300,000 in our fellowship worldwide, from Latin America. So North America is just Canada and the United States, and worldwide, that's the world missions. 300,000 currently, and we're going to have 750,000 in a conservative estimate in 10 years. Because we have the Hmong, or the Vietnamese mission and the Hmong, and I guess 250,000 of that is going to come directly from the Hmong. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Another thing from World Mission is Academia Christo. What they're doing is the funnel. They just share the gospel all over, but they have connections, so they want to connect with people, and it's only going to be online. They're going to connect with people, they're going to grade people, they're going to interact with people, and then when somebody completes the course, they're hungry to go and say, I want to share my new faith, or my faith that's been sharpened. I'm going to share my faith, and they're going to be in house churches. And they're going to establish that kind of house churches. And I thought, this is just not going to work. I don't know. I'm home missions. I don't have world mission thinking. And it just exploded. It's now, they do an English course just as well for Europe, doing this process. Okay, now I don't.
Lose it?
Yep, I lost it. Sorry about the crackling. The Vietnamese government asked the wells, and this is, I said, 250,000. We're training 60 pastors. You can't call them pastors. So a theological training center in Vietnam. So it's a communist government. They don't want any seminary there. So it's a theological seminary, and we do not have occupancy. The Wells people, $3 million, they raise it. This is the beautiful building. Pastor Nitz, that's where he would be serving. but they haven't opened up. There's just been silence on all of that. I don't know why, but when we had a Christian giving counselor who, his daughter-in-law was Vietnamese, and so he toured this facility, and it was locked up. So that was late September that it was locked up. So the government is still dragging its heels. We've paid for it, we've signed for it, and I guess we just don't have occupancy for it yet. But we pray that it will be used very soon. But the pastor lives next door, and I don't know if Thailand is where we're training them. I don't remember. Congregational services. This is a quote from a leadership conference. Pastor Hine is just a really brilliant guy. One of the funding sources, and probably we have $1 million, churches close because I don't know how well you're familiar with Wisconsin. My father-in-law retired in Wausau, Wisconsin, and there are two churches in Mosinee. Two churches, there is rural Mosinee and Mosinee proper, and they have like 80 members total, and they're about a mile apart. And then about 4 miles away, then there's 3 churches out in the rural areas, and so the congregational service is focusing on Merge for Missions. You know, we can't really sustain these pastors. They have endowments, so they're going to continue to go maybe for 30, 40, 50 years. But there are only 15 people here, 15 people here. The Pig Church is 60 people, and all of them are within about 10 miles. And in rural Wisconsin, it's probably a 5-minute drive for 4 or 5 churches. So Merge for Missions. But that's where there's also pastor manpower is going to come from, and when they sell the churches, if they're going to give it to the synod, and now it's about $1 million. But he says if we would have a decade from now 200 fewer congregations, but we're doing more ministry, that's a good thing. And so Merge for Missions is what, if you heard about that. So what I want to just kind of wrap up a little bit with this different ways to give. When it's your congregation or evergreen, to giving to world missions, home missions, and all of those things, the Wells Foundation can help you. If you go through the Wells Foundation, they can distribute any funds to anywhere who's a Wells ministry. And what's a Wells ministry? It's your congregation is a Wells ministry. Evergreen is a Wells ministry. If Central African Medical Mission, they're independent, but they're a Wells ministry. Okay? So if you're using the foundation, then the foundation, as long as they have a letter of instruction, when the funds are received, they can disperse it to whomever. But here's something that I would like to share with you. If you're going to leave your wealth to your children, I'm going to just encourage you to consider leaving a percentage to the Lord, wherever that is, what Wells Ministry. If you are really blessed with finances, when you go to the Lord, you can give to both your local congregation, or maybe to Evergreen, and then to the wells. And here's how it would work. You have to give a person some money of an inheritance. So they have to have a minuscule amount because it has to be based on a life, not on an organization. So you have to, maybe your grandniece or something. And then you can set up, I'm going to give for 20 years 100% of my gift with that little minuscule amount to Evergreen and Holy Trinity. And then after 20 years, 100% of that goes to the wells, or it could go to Holy Trinity, wells, and Evergreen as a lump sum, whatever you want to decide. But you can give it twice, not only to the kids, but you could give it twice to an organization. And 20 years is not very long. Okay? 20 years is not very long. You can give a gift. It's called a legacy charitable remainder. It's the same gift that you going to say, okay, I'm going to give for 20 years or longer to my kids. And I have 2 kids. I have 4 kids. But you have 2 kids. They're going to receive 20% of your gift. 5% of your gift for 20 years. And then you can give it to whatever ministry you choose. So I have a situation. This person has 1 child. And she doesn't go to church. And she's my age. She's 50. The donors are in their 80s, 81, 82. But they want to give 100% to their kids. And then she's like, well, I'm going to just give 50% a lump sum. And I'm like, that's not good. That's not good for her to receive a lump sum. She doesn't go to church. She's kind of lived a reckless life. May God reach her heart. So give her a gift, because one of the issues was it's only for 20 years. No, you can arrange it for a lifetime, and when she passes away, the remainder will go to the ministry of your choice. So he can give 100% to her, but only incrementally, and 100% to the church. How do they do that? Because they invested. And you can only give out 5%. They invested for 6 to 8 to 10%, so it's going to grow with inflation for all of that. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but I would be very happy to sit down and talk with you for anything about those kind of gifts. The next thing that I would like to just share with you, we have 2 things that we meet with people. Congregational giving. If you want to set up a planned giving, it's not that difficult. It's a booklet, but if you go through the steps, it's going to be very easy. And you then can have you can even use the foundation for all this. But congregational giving, that's a great way to support your local church. The other thing is, if you don't have a will, you're not going to have your gifts end up where you want them to go, where you desire it to go. Yes, the beneficiaries are designated first. So if you have a beneficiary designation to Holy Trinity, that goes first and foremost. But if you're having assets and different things, you really need a will. I don't know if anybody knows, I know it's been a long time, Becky Gabert. She was a lady in our congregation, She's 45 years old, and she wanted to leave. She had no children. She's just alone, and she wanted to leave for missions because she was on the mission board, and then she wanted to leave for Emmanuel. And then all of a sudden she got cancer. And she died within a year and a half because it was very aggressive cancer, and she didn't have a will. So the estate lawyer on her hospital bed basically was writing up things on a napkin. And it was just directed to her sisters, and then she said, this is where I want it to go. But I don't know if that's where it's going to go. Because her sisters are now the ones who received, well, she had $1 million when she died. Okay? She had $1 million. So her sisters now have that money, and I don't have any idea what they're doing with it and all of that. But you can avoid that. You can avoid it. Get a will. It's not very hard. You can just do it within a couple months, or if you're complicated, you can then talk to me, but talk to a lawyer, and then just kind of funnel down with all of that. So I passed around, I don't know where it ended up. I need to get everybody's name who is here. I have to record that. If you want to have a visit, you can just say, hey, asterisk or email. That would be fine. But I have to have your name because this is what I do. And they have to know that I am doing it. So if you didn't sign the piece of paper, please do that. I just did a white piece of paper. I don't know where it ended up. So this is my oversight. We do counsel stewardship. We do counsel with congregations to maybe set up a congregational giving plan. But what we really want to do is to encourage you to give and to know what you're giving to. And there's a lot of great things going on in the Wells. So that's where I'm going to stop. I don't know if you have maybe a brief question or two. All right. Thank you very much. I was with a lot of fear and trepidation in presenting. I know that I didn't do very, very, very well, but I got through it. And so I thank you for being the audience that I had to get through it with. So thank you.